All right, you guys. So in this video, I am going to show you guys how I sew my doll's head onto the body. So if you're in the Facebook group, you know that there was a conversation about whether or not we can close up the gap that's formed when we're joining in the legs. And I say no. And a lot of you were concerned. You were like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to close it up. But the reason I don't close it up yet is because I do prefer to insert my doll from the bottom up. If you close up her legs already, then that means that you're going to have to insert the dowel into the neck. And the dowel is not the perfect size. You are going to have to cut the dowel down. And so for me, it is easier for me to cut the dowel this way because I'm able to mark it here as far as what needs to be cut versus me trying to figure out with her head off, how much do I need to cut? So doing it this way for me is just less room for error, because if you do not cut this to the right size, a lot of people, when they're like, oh, well, I use the dowel, but I still got a wobbly neck, or the dowel is moving, the dowel is shifting, it's probably because you didn't cut the dowel to the right size. So here's the important thing. You do want the dowel to come to the top of her head. So you should feel it at the top of her head without it like protruding through or messing up her head or the wig cap. You should feel that dowel. And then it's going to sit right at the base of her legs at that joint where you're gonna sew it up at. And so for me, it is easier for me to do it this way and see how much I need to cut for it to sit right where I need it to sit, again, versus me taking her head off and trying to figure out, oh, is that enough? Did I cut enough? So that's why I do it this way. If you are more comfortable doing it the other way, by all means, definitely do it that way. I have tried it the other way. If you've taken my doll workshop, you know that Aniqua teaches you to do it the other way. And that's awesome if you're able to do it. Me, personally, I just find that it opens me up to too much error and too much possibility to cut it too short or not enough. And I got to keep going back to cut it again, or I got to cut a whole new dowel because once I cut it too short, there's no going back. Like, I can't save it once I cut it too short. So for me, this way just allows me to make sure that I cut it the right size every single time, because I'm able to mark it where it needs to be and then cut it. Okay, so that's why I do it that way. After I cut it, then I can stuff it a little bit more and sew it up. Again, if you're not comfortable doing it that way, then by all means do it the other way. But that's why I do it this way. So as far as sewing the head onto the body. So for my doll designs, my neck of the head fits over the neck of the body. And so what we're going to do, and this might be hard for me to do in this position because I kind of need the doll to be standing up. But what we're going to do is pull the neck down. The neck of the head should come and fit down over the neck of the body. And so I'm just pulling this down. And remember, I left a long tail on my neck. If you didn't leave a long tail, that's fine. You can definitely just cut some yarn and sew it on with cut yarn. But I just leave a long tail and I'm able to cut it that way. So you see how I fit the neck. This is the neck of my doll head. And I have fit that neck. I've pulled it down to fit over the neck of the body. Now what I'm going to do, like I said, because I have that long tail, I'm just going to take the long tail and my darning needle. Just going to take the long tail and my darning needle, and I'm just going to sew that on to her body. And sometimes it's easier to do that with the dowel already like in place. You can do it without the dowel, but I just find it easier because, again, it just helps me know like where I'm gonna cut and everything like that. So I do it with the dowel in place. My head is normally, like I said, the last thing that I sew on. Like, I try to make sure that everything else is done with the body. I'm not going to have to do like a whole, like there shouldn't be anything else that you're really doing with the body. I need to close up those holes right there. Normally those would already be closed up too, but for the sake of me getting this done, we're just going to go ahead and do it. And normally she would already have on her shirt as well. But as I've told you guys, I'm still having a dilemma about what type of shirt I want my doll to wear. So again, with the neck, so again, my neck is pulled down over the neck of the body. I'm going to just take this darning needle. Like I said, I weave the long tail in there, and I am going to, I don't know what kind of stitch this is because I don't really sew. It's a stitch that I found work. If you sew and you know what kind of stitch this is, tell the people what kind of stitch it is. But I take it, so you see that it's starting here. I'm going to come like 2 stitches up. I'm going to insert my darning needle, and I'm going into the neck of the head as well as the neck of the body, and then I'm going to come back out like where I started at, or where that stitch starts, and I pull tightly. And then I'm going to skip about 2 stitches, and then but I'm going to come back up next to that stitch that was just made. And again, and as I'm doing this, I am making sure that that neck is still pulled down over the body. Also make sure that your face is not twisted. There will be a little bit of movement in her neck, but not a whole lot of movement. It shouldn't be a whole lot of movement, but there will be some movement. I've gotten that question before. Like, people are like, oh, my doll's head is moving. It moves. It does move slightly. It doesn't do like a 360 turn or anything like that, but it will still have some movement. And again, as you can see, like I said, I'm skipping like 2 stitches, and then I'm just coming back up kind of next to the stitch that I had previously made. As I'm coming around, I will pull it down just a little bit, skip a couple of stitches, and then come back up, and then pull it down, skip a couple of stitches, and again I'm going through the neck of the head as well as the neck in the body. Pull that down, skip a couple of stitches, come back up. I do this all the way around, and I hope you guys can see this. It's kind of, again, hard for me to do at this camera angle, but I think y'all get the point of what's happening here. And we do that, and I just keep coming all the way around. And again, if you didn't leave the long tail, that's okay. Just cut some yarn in the skin tone and do it that way. That's fine. Main thing is you just want to make sure that that's secure. And I'm going to, again, just keep coming all the way back around. I want to get back to like where it started. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to take the yarn and just weave it through her neck. So that I know it's secure. And then that's it. That's how I put on my necks. But yeah, the neck should fit over the neck of the body. So the neck on the actual doll head should fit over the neck of the body. And like I said, once I kind of get back to where I started, I'm just gonna kind of weave this tail through her neck so that I know it's secure. And then we'll just snip off any excess, and we will have a head attached to the body. And like I said, there is a little bit of movement, but it doesn't do 360, but there is a little bit of movement. So, and that's normal. That should be, you should have a little bit of movement just because of how it's sewn on. And then what I'm going to do is, so again, because I haven't cut that down yet, I just want to make sure that it's sitting at the top, like I can feel it at the top of her head. And then I will take a marker here, being careful not to mark on the doll itself, but I'm just going to mark where that needs to be cut. And now I do have these, I don't know what kind of cutters they are. I found this at Lowe's. And so I got it prior to me. I got this like maybe a couple of months ago. Prior to me getting this, however, I was cutting with regular, like I was just taking some really sharp scissors like this, and I was just cutting it with some really sharp scissors. But if I saw a few of you did have like wood cutters and things like that. So if you have that, it definitely makes it a bit easier. If you have a wood cutter, this thing definitely makes it easier for me. But what I'm going to do is I can pull it out. I'm not going to pull it all the way out, but I can pull it out so that I can see where I marked a little bit better. I'm just going to slide that in there, and I'm just going to cut where I marked. And with these, I do have to be a little strong because, like I said, I've been using them for a while and I feel like they need to be sharpened again, because before these would like just cut right through like this. So like this is actually cut, but we'll just make sure. And so it just cuts it right off. And then I have a sander. If it's a clean cut for me, but if you feel like that might be rough, then you can definitely sand it. I'd use a fingernail file to just sand it. I think I have one in here. I'm almost certain I have one in here. Yeah. I know I have one in here. So I just take a fingernail file, and if I feel like that might be rough, I just sand it down so that there's no rough edges whatsoever, nothing to get snagged on yarn or anything like that. Then I'm just going to push it back up so that it is sitting where I need it to sit. And now there should be, or maybe there's not a tail. Yeah, I think I cut the tail off, but I'll just get some black yarn and now I can close that up. But again, as you can see, sitting right where it needs to sit for her head. So that's how I do the head. I will do the ears on the live tomorrow, only because I normally don't put my, and maybe not even on the live, like I may do like a recorded video for the ears, because I don't put my ears are the very last thing I put on, because the hair and everything has to be in place for me to put my ears on. So the ears are the last thing that I put on my doll, are her ears. So I will, if I don't do the ears on the live, I will definitely do a recorded video. They're really simple how I do them. But I did want to show you guys how I do so on the head. I know somebody asked me also about the nose. So for the nose, we can do her nose really quickly. I just take the skin color yarn and I'm just going to cut a strip of skin color yarn. And so I have a strip like this. And we're going to, again, take the darning needle. And you place your nose wherever you feel like putting your nose. I mean, we don't want noses to be mouths. So, you know, your nose shouldn't be like all the way too far away from her eyes. I know some people don't like sitting them like right in between. Like, I don't think your nose shouldn't be up here either. But just find a good place for where you think you want your nose to be. And I just, again, I eyeball it. Like, I kind of look at it and I try to keep the same number of stitches in between the eyes. Like, I want the nose to be somewhat centered. And so if there's a stitch on this side, I want to make sure I leave a stitch on that side. I don't want to bust through any stitches, so I do try to use the face as a grid. And what we're going to do is just, I go underneath and then I come out where I want my nose to come out at. So let's say, where do I want her nose to be? Okay, let's say I want it to be there. So I'm going to come out here. Again, similar to how I did the lashes, I'm going to leave a tail. And then I'm just going to go back into the stitch that I went into and come out the same stitch that I came out of. And then I'm just going to keep doing that over and over again until I get the thickness of the nose that I want. So I'm going to come out, pull down until I feel like that's the thickness that I want. I'll look at her face, and if I don't like it, guess what? I'll cut it and do it again until I like it. Like, the nose is normally like kind of trial and error. Sometimes I like to do wider noses, sometimes not. Sometimes I like to do thick noses, and I'll go back and forth about 5 or 6 times. Sometimes I just do it like 3 times. So it just depends on what you want that to be. Do I like that? I feel like that's too small for me. And so, yep, I'm going to take that out. Being careful not to cut the stitches on her face. But this is like, literally, this is what I do. If I don't like it, I take it out and we try it again until I get a nose that I like. And then once I get one that I like, then okay. So I'm not even going to cut any more yarn. I'm going to just use this yarn. And we'll try it again. I just felt like that was too small for her face. And that's just me. Again, sometimes that nose would have been perfect. I would have been like, oh my gosh, I love it. And then other times, not so much. It just depends on how I feel and what the aesthetic is I'm trying to go for that doll design. So this one, like I said, I just feel like her nose might need it to be a little bit wider. And so I'm gonna come all the way over with it. But the concept of how I do it is the same. So we're going in the stitch. I'm gonna come out that same stitch that I went into, in it, out, same stitch. Yep, I already can tell I like this one better. Same stitch. And then once I get it the thickness that I like, when I come back that last time, I won't come out the same stitch. I'll come out somewhere else so that I know it's in there. And then we'll just cut off the excess. And voila. She has a nose. I might have did that stitch a little. I might have pulled it too hard. So be careful of that. When you're pulling it across, make sure that you don't pull it too tight, because you will pull. You could possibly pull, manipulate your stitches, and you don't want to do that. So I might have pulled too tight one time, and so it caused like a little gap right there, but I'll go back and fix it. But yeah, that's her nose. And so we'll give her, she needs to get her hair. And of course she doesn't have lashes yet, because I haven't decided if I want to do embroidered lashes on her or if I'm going to do the falsies. But we'll see. But she'll get lashes and ears and hair, and I do need to figure out her top. But I'll see you guys live for the skates tomorrow. All right, y'all enjoy the rest of your night.